So I call to order the meeting number 15 of fiscal year 2021, the Advisory Finance Committee, February 1st, here 7 p.m. Remotely on YouTube at Westborough TV and can be seen on Verizon Channel 28 or at Charter Channel 192. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at www.town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so, as I said, on YouTube at Westborough TV or on channels 28 for Verizon or 192 for Charter, or a recorded version on the website westboroughTV.org will be available under the Government tab, Meetings on Demand. Our first item tonight is review of the minutes for our meeting on January 21st.
I
Do
will
I have a motion?
I will fess up, I haven't read them, so I'm going to abstain.
I move that we accept the minutes of January 21st, meeting number 13.
Thank you. Second, thank you, Walter. Any discussion? Nope, we're good. Okay. We'll go around. Mr. Hugel.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Blumberg.
Abstain.
Okay, Ms. Board.
Board, yes.
Mr. Beretti.
Yes.
Mr. Leslie.
Oh,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley.
Bradley, yes.
All right, Ms. Hensley.
Hensley, yes.
And Keough, yes. So 701. All right. Second on the agenda is a reserve fund transfer request. And I think some of you may already be familiar with this. The senior center had a gas leak. Apparently they've had an issue with a gas smell there for a while. And finally the fire chief went down there apparently and called in Eversource, and they came through and found, it was mentioned to me that they found 9 separate leaks in the gas pipes there. Something quite surprising. I think that the issue was you would smell it, then you wouldn't smell it, or, you know, they were just chasing it, trying to fix these things. So they ended up replacing a significant portion of the pipe, like closing the center for a while, fixing a significant portion of the pipe, and then they have finally reopened, and actually now the bills are coming due. So they're hoping we can help them out here. And there were 3 separate invoices, I believe, that they're paying. One is for the work to replace the pipes. I know another is they had to bring in equipment because that's the heating source that was shut down. They had to bring in equipment to portable heaters to keep the pipes from freezing and stuff. So they had multiple things. The total amount of the transfer necessary, the amount here was the total of those 3 invoices, $24,584.55. And you can see within the budget, they only, in that line item, or in that account, they only have a little over $22,000 for the full year. So they're hoping that we can provide them the full amount of what they paid so that they will have then funds over in case they need to do additional work throughout the rest of the year. Are there questions folks have? Are there portions of the story that others can add that I didn't have there?
Motion to transfer $24,584.55 from the AFC reserve to the senior center for the purpose of this request.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mike. Okay. Any additional discussion?
I just have a question. For our fund, did we fully refund it or have we still have a substantial amount in it, right?
Yes, at this point, I don't believe we have done anything yet this year with our fund, right? We are still at our 250 this fiscal year.
Right. This is the same year we replenished it to 250, right? After we did something in the summer or fall.
We bought the salt cover for the Department of Public Works over on
Last winter, yeah.
last winter.
Oh,
and
okay.
replaced it at the time, but different fiscal year, I think already.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Time flies. Thank you.
No problem. See, I had the same thought.
No, it seems to me like a pretty non-controversial, very much needed, what we have emergency funds for.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I mean,
My
They-
assumption, if they have money left in their account at the end of the year, it goes back to the general fund and it makes its way back to the reserve. And hopefully
Right.
they don't have more of this nature of gas leak.
right. Right, yes, I feel comfortable and they feel confident that the issue is resolved since they replaced, nearly the entirety of the pipe, so,
But it's the piece they left behind thinking they were saving money.
yeah. Right. If there's no further discussion, round for a vote. Mr. Hugel,
Yes.
Ms. Blumberg,
Blumberg, yes.
Ms. Board,
Ford, yes.
Mr. Beretti,
Yes.
Mr. Leslie,
Leslie, yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Bradley, yes.
Ms. Hensley,
Hensley, yes.
and Keo, yes. 800. And then the final discussion for tonight is, sort of following our all-day meeting on Thursday. I felt that was a very successful meeting. We got a lot accomplished there. And that, it doesn't, there's still items left that are going to need to be discussed. Some boards that didn't come before us on that day, and then some other items that maybe there are additional questions on, but it got us a lot of way towards being complete with certainly the budget. And there is an expectation, I think, or it is likely that at the selectmen's meeting a week from tomorrow, they are going to push out the annual town meeting into the May timeframe. So with that significant chunk that we accomplished last Thursday, depending on what happens at the next selectmen's meeting, I think we have a good portion of time before we really need to worry too much about the work that needs to be done for the annual town meeting. With that, I would suggest that maybe I schedule a meeting for the Thursday following the selectmen's meeting, so maybe a week from this Thursday. At that point, we'll know whether or not they move to town meeting. If for some reason they decide not to, then we will definitely need to meet that Thursday. And but if they do, I think Hank was seeing if the golf course could come before us on Thursday, because we definitely do have some follow-up with them. Otherwise, if they can't do it, but the meeting gets pushed, I'm comfortable canceling that meeting and then doing maybe our first meeting again, the first Monday in March. If folks are okay
Yeah.
with it, assuming the meeting moves to May.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit too. And if the meeting moves to May, that means that there'll be a lot clearer financial picture, or hopefully, about what's coming from the state, what's coming from the feds, and we'll
Yes.
understand some of the fiscal pressures a little better. So I was hoping we wouldn't have to take votes till maybe April. I mean, if that helps clarify the fiscal picture.
Right. No, it's a good point. Mike and I had a discussion, and yeah, whether or not that state aid is correct, I think because it came in so favorably to us, there was, I think, some concern that maybe it was a mistake. So yes, I think waiting for the confirmation on that is critical, because if it is correct, then maybe some other things that we had thought we were going to do or weren't going to do are going to change based on that. So
Yeah, I think amounts, some of the, on the warrant articles, some of the amounts were not filled in yet even. And then there'll also be the question of if things go south, will some of those be pushed back until the fall or something? So there's no reason to not delay a little bit to, instead of voting on things and then having to change it and then also forgetting about it by the time.
Congress is also, Congress is also going to be deliberating
Right.
whether to be sending aid to cities and towns.
Right.
And I know they want that vote taken in Congress in March. I think that would be coming our way. You know, it'll impact the fiscal year. So anyway, I just think we'll know a lot more
right.
the closer we get to May.
I'm wondering if will the warrant also maybe, I mean, that
Mm.
2-3 months would different things be on the warrant even that are on there today? I mean, they haven't closed the warrant, right?
Oh, they haven't closed it.
Right.
I
Well,
wonder how long they'll keep it open.
Well, they keep it up
yes.
until some certain amount of time before town meeting. So
Right.
it closes 30 days before town meeting or something. So the warrant's open for a while.
Right. I think if they don't move town meeting, I believe they either have to close it next Tuesday or possibly the Tuesday after that. One of the next 2 weeks that we need to close. But yes, correct. If they move to May, then it doesn't need to close until sometime in April. And
Right.
So a couple things, maybe other articles get added, but also primarily probably they take more time finalizing the articles that were sort of in there in a draft form currently. Paula, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I thought I was on mute. Yeah, and I think Christy mentioned that she had gone back to all the departments to prioritize their warrants. So for some reason it goes the other way, we want to, push them off or not do some or whatever. I think she's working on that too. So everything's in flux, both directions.
Yeah. So I'll throw something out there for a week from Thursday, and if the golf club can meet, then maybe we'll have a quick call at that, assuming that the town meeting gets pushed. If it doesn't, then we'll probably have a more thorough meeting to make sure we determine exactly what we think is still outstanding. But does anybody have any comments they want to provide on last Thursday's meeting or what they feel is outstanding?
I really was impressed by the depth of some of the information presented in length. It's a long day, but I felt like I learned a lot at it, and I thought it was very useful. That I think for the departments that presented to a large extent, I'm reasonably set given what we know now without large changes. There were some other things on that warrant. I think it's Historic Commission, which gives no clue as to, it's just they want to spend some money or something. So that's something that between now and it closes, we should get more details on.
Yeah, at some point, I think they would need to come in front of us to provide us details on what they're hoping to accomplish. Yeah. Agreed. Then the golf course, I think there's some planning related items and typically they'll come before us as well.
If town meeting is pushed back to May, is there a connection issue with the elections that I believe are scheduled for early March? Because one of the first things we do at town meeting is like vote to certify the elections or some equivalent.
Mm.
Yeah, good
You know
question.
what I'm talking about, right?
I think
Yes.
the elections moved back,
Um,
or there's the swearing in. I don't know.
I-
Didn't that happened last year?
Oh,
Yeah,
here's the man
With
who
the,
knows.
well, I won't claim to have all the expert knowledge, but as Walter just pointed out, last year we had the election and then had the lockdown. Of course, it was a little different because I was the one who did the postponing and the meeting had been voted. However, it seems that the current thinking of the town council is, although the bylaw gives some guidance about when the town meeting should be called, the selectmen actually have the authority, are the only ones with the authority to call it. So I would imagine that that will come up next Tuesday at the selectmen's meeting, but it wouldn't surprise me if the guidance they get from town council is that, given that, we've already done the collection of signatures and given that the election has pretty much been established, that they may still have the election in early March and then just post, essentially the warrant for Article 2. I guess the real question, now that I just said that out loud, the real question is that, as Beth pointed out, the election is actually Article 1. So the question will come up that if the election is Article 1, and if they still want to hold it in March, then they have to have some warrant posted before the usual timeline. And then so the question would be whether they had to complete the rest of the warrant, essentially Articles 2 through whatever, in the same posting for the election. So that's actually an interesting question, and we'll see what
In
happens.
other words, have a
next week.
special town meeting just for the election?
I don't believe so. I believe the election has to be in the annual town meeting.
Okay,
But there's not much that usually is considered as having to be in the annual town meeting. The budget, the first handful of articles are typically considered that those are traditionally in the annual town meeting. But it also doesn't mean that, that they couldn't post a warrant. I mean, we'll leave it up to the selectmen. It's completely in the selectmen's purview, but
yeah.
it could be that they would open and close an annual town meeting warrant that has the minimal things, the usual Article 2, 3, with the budget, and then leave everything else for a special town meeting that they just schedule on the same day as whenever the annual, for later for the mid-May. But that's actually a good question, and we'll see what happens. And if I get a chance, I'll send email seeing if they've given any thought to how they're going to handle that.
Right, but also possibly a good strategy that it's two separate warrants.
Right. Yeah, that would be and I think that the thing that I would just want some clarity about is typically the budget is considered part of the annual town meeting. I don't remember if that's in statute or if it's just tradition.
Because it's the
But
budget
it
really in flux.
could also be that they get guidance from town council that there's no reason why they can't
Delay.
do a warrant for the election and do something minimal and then essentially reopen it and edit it later. That's where I'm not as expert on what the selectmen's powers there are. Other than that, I know the concern about having to, be in lockstep with the bylaw. The town council seems to think that the selectmen can use that as guidance. And since the selectmen have the sole authority to call the town meetings, then they have some latitude there. But I'll try to remember, if I get a chance later tonight or this week, I'll try to send email to Shelby and Christy asking if they, if and when they're going to make a call about the election being tied to the regular part of the town meeting and whether there's going to be a gap until May, or how they're going to close the warrant without having all of these things finalized.
Right.
But thanks
Thanks,
for bringing it
Jim.
up. It actually is an interesting question.
Any other comments related to last Thursday or?
Two things I were thinking about. I mean, we had a lot of discussion about the capital spending. And it was interesting in the end when the town manager said that they are watching, the financial pressures, and there's nothing to keep anyone from delaying capital expenditures the way they did last time. So that's just another reason to wait and see where we're sitting later in the spring. Also on the library, I haven't liaised with the library at all, but the mention that that's expected to begin, that project is expected in FY23. I think we should be asking questions about how that impacts the debt service plan. Remember all the bar graphs we had that were supposed to start hitting their peak in 25?
Which they
So,
basically said the library was not included in that.
yeah, I think we need to have a look at those bar graphs again, especially if we're gonna, send other things out to borrow now. So that's something to ask the town manager, if she could recreate that kind of a data display for us.
Yeah. On capital equipment, I'm a little bit concerned about the delay for the fire truck, only because it's so incredibly old, that at some point we're starting to gamble with our ability to keep a 25-year-old truck on the road. And especially given that even if we say today we want it, we don't own it for over a year.
Agreed.
I know it's only a couple months, but it just seems like that's the one that I looked at as the most pushing our vulnerabilities.
I think we're beholden to what the fire chief says in terms of his perspective on the risk. Much as I understand that it makes sense to say that, if he thought we were imperiled, I think it's, again, beholden upon him to say we need to advance this in a special election. Maybe he just needs to be reminded of that urgency if he needs it.
Well, so the catch is, if there's an accident and somebody rams into the fire truck by accident, he is going to come to us the next day.
Well, no, he won't, because
It's still a year.
regardless, it takes a year to get the truck,
Yeah.
right? So whether it's a day in April or a day in May, they're going to have to come up with something else.
Well, I guess that's why I thought he'd end up coming to us the next day, whether he has to lend, lease, buy, borrow, I just feel like as a community, we're self-insuring that risk right now. And we don't know how big it is.
We are, Beth, but I think he's prepared to move very quickly. That's the indication he gave.
Yeah, no, he basically did say he's got
He's
like
ready to
everything
roll.
dotted.
Yeah. Melanie, can you clarify anything on that?
He's ready to move. That, yes, I do know. What do you need me to clarify? We do need the truck.
Yeah, and the bottom line is we have a great fire chief, right? So
Right.
He's going to figure this out. Something comes up, he will figure it out.
Yeah.
I think the bigger concern was the fact that because there is such a long lag time in production, I think a year is a long time for a piece of equipment to be produced. The bigger concern was we've set money aside. Could we not make a commitment without having the vote? But I guess that's a no, you can't do that.
No.
Town meeting has to appropriate the money.
Yeah. And we know that effective, he did kind of hint at the fact that any delay could be cost prohibitive for us in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
But beyond July 1st, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Not to say this is going to happen, but if a TIF or some other special town meeting object comes forward, the fire truck should probably be recommended to join it.
Well, I say we go with what the fire chief decides. If he decides it should come forward, then I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So,
And this is actually just like going to be, if it's the middle of May, it's 2-month delay. It's not 4-month delay,
right.
even 3.
It is the chief and the town manager who make that decision about what to bring forward and when to bring it forward.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So anything else?
Yeah, I don't want to let that whole issue of grant writing fall by the wayside. Virtually every department is doing grants. and the town manager is pushing departments to seek other sources of revenue for capital items. I think we ought to make sure that stays top of mind. I know it's a management decision, but given a reliance on grants and given the fact that department heads are doing a lot of other things besides grant writing, we ought to keep that in the forefront of thinking for a while until we get a decision.
I thought what I heard was that the grant writing itself wasn't so bad. It was the follow-up and monitoring the grants once received that some of the different department heads would like somebody to do.
Writing reports, filling out data.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the monitoring. I know fire chief does 11, staggered over the course. I think DPW said 6.
And the school committee's got a slew. I mean, not the school committee, Amber, school department has a slew.
Fire had 5, maybe DPW had 8. And I think DPW spoke to the fact that writing is not the issue. He could almost write them in a sleep. It was the monitoring. It was the follow-up to make sure that they were within the timeline and the parameters of what the grant was agreed upon.
Right.
That's the tedious component of the grant. So to Mike's point, I think we should stay on it, but it's more, I think the role would be less of writing, more of kind of overseeing.
Well,
Admin and finance.
And maybe we can check, we did the town staffing study, and I'm wondering if a recommendation came up related to that, and maybe we just hadn't considered implementing it yet. We can ask.
Yes, Sean, she talked about, it did not come up in the staffing study. And she spoke to the idea of putting that responsibility under a purchasing person yet to be identified or hired. I've had a lot of experience with grant writing in the academic setting. And it's the writing piece is relatively easy if you know the subject matter. The obviously difficult part, one of the difficult parts is monitoring compliance so that you don't run afoul of the grant requirements. The other is researching available grants. That's a lot of time spent on identifying potential grants that are out there. So if the department heads can focus their energy on writing the grants in a collaborative way with the, let's just say, person who's doing all the other stuff, the research and the monitoring for compliance can be done by one person, but it is quite a job. It is quite a job. And we don't cut the department heads out. The department for whom the grant is intended has to be continually informed of what's going on in terms of compliance and so forth, as well as having other ideas fed to them for additional grants.
Right.
So it's a very collaborative effort.
Good. Thanks, Mike.
I should say there are there's websites and there's groups and organizations that are designed to support grant writing for municipalities. So we don't even necessarily have to talk about headcount. I don't know what those services offer, from writing to monitoring to fulfillment or what have you. Maybe just it warrants talking to somebody in that industry to see if what sort of services are available to make things better for the town.
Yeah. No, Andrew, I think you're right. That's an alternative, but those are the decisions that Christie is going to have to make and decide where she wants to go. But I think if we've got some information, just pass it on to her. It's one other bit that she doesn't have to go crazy looking for,
I'll make a note now. In terms of that, so it's not in the budget we looked at the other day. So maybe, and I guess town meeting's moving off, and we actually now have some time between now and town meeting. Maybe there's somebody we could have come in and talk to us about it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
You know, anybody, any other comments? I think we sort of discussed future draft agendas. Maybe the golf course coming on the 11th. Any liaison reports since we last met?
I think you've heard pretty recently from the school committee and school department, and they're meeting on Wednesday, and I have a different board meeting on Wednesday, so I will be watching it on delay, but if we're not meeting again until whenever, I'll have watched it before then.
Okay.
And they're talking about COVID and the budget at this coming school committee meeting on Wednesday.
Thank you, Beth.
So normally I would watch it.
Any other reports? No, we're good. All right. I think we can make tonight quick.
All right. So I have one question that I don't know if are you running for selectman? Select person?
I'm not really talking about
I
on the AFC
understand that.
meeting though.
But are you allowed to be on both?
No,
Oh.
I'm assuming not. No,
Because Syed is on both the Board of Health and selectman.
I think it would
believe that
be
the
a tremendous
bylaw-
conflict to be on both. Go ahead, John.
I believe the bylaw says that people on the advisory finance committee can't be on any other board or committee. I
Oh,
don't
we're
think that's
special-
same
we're
as for
special.
selectmen. Yeah, so I think not to belabor the point, I think Sean is essentially the same situation I was in when I ran for moderator like
Okay.
7 or 8 years ago, where
Okay.
it's fine for him to serve, but if he gets sworn in, he will have to resign. Because that's what I did. So.
All right, fine.
Thank you, Beth.
Sorry about that, but yeah.
No, quite all right. All right. If there's nothing else,
Do we have announcements for the public? Okay.
don't forget to vote March 2nd.
Okay. Are you asking for announcements for for public reminders?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to say to the vast viewing public here that the final Westborough Master Plan public forum, where anybody in town can give public input, is going to be happening February 18th from 6:30 to 8:30. And that will be a Zoom meeting on that. Is that a Thursday night, I believe? So I'd want to invite the public to please participate. You can go to the westboroughmasterplan.org website and sign up for that Zoom, and you'll be sent, well, actually there's a Zoom and a passcode that's already been offered there. So please pitch in. This is the time for the people who live here now to influence the future direction of Westborough. So come to that Zoom public forum on the master plan on Thursday, February 18th from 6:30 to 8:30.
And then are they
Thank you.
expected to give us a report at some point in the future?
Yeah, they're currently still taking feedback.
Okay, but there's a product at the end of this.
Yes.
But I don't think that there's any expectation that that product be presented to FinCom.
No,
So,
it doesn't come.
You asked the question about
Yeah.
are they going to give us a report? No, there's definitely a report released.
Okay,
Yeah, the master plan gets released, but there's no plan to come to FinCom. I don't believe so. They're coordinating an advisory group that involves everyone, and all of the data that they've gathered and the potential baseline conditions and beginning goals are posted on the website regularly. There's quite a lot of information at the website.
Jody, when did you say that meeting was? The 18th?
Thursday, the 18th, 6:30 to 8:30. And I did send an email out to AFC this week. Hello, AFC. And so if you search your email, it's under Westborough Master Plan Public Forum. And that came on Friday to you at 5:38 PM on January 29th. So
Which
all
is-
the information, yep,
It's much more conducive for us to go if we're not having a FinCom meeting.
Yes, I think we
And when-
can all agree we won't meet on the 18th.
thank you.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public reminders?
Wear your
I have
mask.
one. Oh, Beth, did you have one?
Just the basic wear your masks in public.
Yes, and this coming Saturday, there is a food drive for the Westborough Food Pantry run by, I believe it is the Westborough ASP, which is, I believe, the Appalachian Service Project.
That's correct.
And they will stop by your house. Oh, what's that?
You were correct.
Yeah, thank you.
ASP. Yeah.
And they will stop by your house and pick up food 11 a.m. on Saturday, roughly. There is an email that you need to request in order to sign up. You email westboroughfooddrive@gmail.com. And then they send you a link to like a Google Doc or whatever, and you put in your information. And they will be coming around this Saturday. Right.
Move we adjourn.
Second,
Sounds good. Second. All right, we'll quick go around. Mr. Hugel,
Yes.
Ms. Blumberg,
Lumberg, yes.
Ms. Ford,
Ford, yes.
Mr. Leslie,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Bradley, yes.
Mr. Moretti,
Yes.
Ms. Hensley. Oop, and she just froze.
Oh, Hensley, yes. Beth?
Hensley, yes, all right. And Keo, yes. All right. See you guys on the 11th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good
All
night.
right. Thanks.
Have a good evening, all. Cheers.
Thanks.
Sean,
Mhm.
I'll be in touch.